told you that QBR and passer rating aren't just two different numbers, but two completely different statistics. And one is way better than the other. But here's the twist. I initially set out making this video to explain why QBR is better than passer rating. But in the process of making this video, I stumbled across some evidence that is currently having me rethink everything. So before you learn why I might have changed my mind, let's talk about the difference between QBR and passer rating. So first of all, QBR stands for total quarterback rating, right? That's the QBR part. And it is a proprietary stat made by ESPN that can only be seen on ESPN. Now, it's an advanced metric that takes into account a lot of things that I'll talk about, but it differs from passer rating because you and I can calculate passer rating right now. Passer rating is just calculated from completions, attempts, passing yards, touchdowns, and interceptions. Those 5 numbers, if I gave you the formula, you could do the math for any quarterback. Now, while they both sound similar, right, like passer rating versus quarterback rating, passer rating can sometimes leave you with some wild results. Let's say you and I both get one drive at quarterback. You're up first, and on 1st and 10, 2nd and 10, and 3rd and 10, with the game on the line, you throw 3 straight incompletions. But on 4th down, at your own 20-yard line, you throw a 75-yard bomb that gets you down to the 5-yard line. In other words, you went 1 for 4 for no touchdowns, no interceptions, and 75 passing yards. Well, that is going to get you a passer rating of 79.17. And I need to point that out specifically because now it's my turn. Game on the line, 1st and 10, and I get a 1-yard completion. 2nd and 9, I get a 3-yard completion. So now we're at 3rd and 6. 3rd and 6, I get a 2-yard completion, and we have a massive 4th and 4, and what do you know it, I throw another check down, and it's 3 more yards. We come up short, and after that, I turn the ball over on downs, 4 attempts, 4 completions, 9 passing yards. You know what my passer rating is? The exact same 79.17 that your drive was, even though you had 75 yards of offense and I turned it over on down. So one of the obvious misses that passer rating has is it doesn't account for when things are happening, right? Like when it was 4th and 4, a 3-yard completion does not help us because I'm giving the ball up. And meanwhile, your incompletions on 1st and 10 and 2nd and 10 may technically show up in the box score as an incompletion, but you threw it for 75 yards on 4th down. Therefore, that was a pretty good drive. So that's why I've always thought that QBR is better because it can handle some of those complexities. QBR accounts for a lot of things, but some of the most important ones are the down and distance, the strength of the opponent, and the actual part of the game that you're in. In other words, a big touchdown when you're down 50 points is really worth a lot less than a big touchdown at the end of a very close game. And the same can be said for turnovers. You know, passer rating weighs an interception the exact same no matter where it happens. But in QBR, an interception like Russell Wilson's in the Super Bowl is a way worse interception than an interception at 4th and 20 at about midfield, because that's basically a glorified Josh Allen punt. Passer rating views those two picks as the same. QBR is able to account for the differences. So it sounds like QBR is the perfect upgrade, and you actually can even see that in the Super Bowl this year, because on paper, Patrick Mahomes and Jalen Hurts actually had similar passer ratings. Yes, Jalen Hurts' 119 was better than Mahomes' 95, but they don't really look all that different. Mahomes had 3 touchdowns and 2 interceptions, and Jalen Hurts had 2 touchdowns and 1 interception. However, anybody that even glanced at the scoreboard in the second quarter between bites of cold appetizers at a friend's house would know that this game was not close and that those two quarterbacks did not perform the same. The vast majority of Mahomes' production came after the game was already decided, just like Chris Paul when he cut the lead down to like 38. Or maybe it was 41, I can't remember. Another thing that QBR can take into account is whether or not the quarterbacks are taking a lot of sacks, which Patrick Mahomes did do. Plus, one of his interceptions was just bone-breaking, that horrible pick 6 at the end of the first half that really cemented Philadelphia's status in that game. To passer rating, that's equally as bad an interception as any of the other ones, but QBR is able to account for just how bad of a pick that was. Therefore, even though their passer ratings were similar, 119 to 95, Jalen Hurts finished with a QBR of 75.4, and Mahomes had a QBR of 11.4. Now, mind you, QBR is on a scale of 0 to 100, with 50 being about the average. So think about that, 74 to 11. That is a much clearer difference than 115-ish to 95-ish. So at this point, I was satisfied, right? Like I knew that QBR was superior because it accounts for so much more complexities. We can see a clear example in the Super Bowl where QBR is able to be more accurate. So I was writing this script and I was done. And then I stumbled across this article by this guy, I think his name's Robbie Greer on Twitter. It's a great article, worth your time, but he really kind of sparked a curiosity by comparing passer rating and QBR. Now, in his article, he argues that there are three fundamental aspects of a good quarterback stat. First one, does it actually correlate with the result of the game? In other words, if you have a great QBR, are you more likely to win? And if you have a fantastic QBR, are you more likely to win by a lot? The second part is how well does that QB stat predict future QB stats? Like, is it stable, right? Because we would expect a good quarterback like Mahomes to be good the following year. Sure, it's not perfect, but for the most part, that's what happens. In other words, what is the correlation between the quarterback stat and that same stat for the same player 1 year later? And finally, does that quarterback stat predict future game results? Now, in his article, he pointed out that QBR and passer rating perform essentially the same across all three areas. They're about equal when it comes to predicting the margin of victory for that game, about equal when it comes to year-over-year predictability, and about equal when it comes to comparing that stat to future performance, as far as like actual margin of victory of that team. So after reading that, I had my eyes opened and I needed to test this myself. So I went on R and I replicated the exact analysis that Robbie Greer did, just with updated data. So since QBR has only existed since 06, I used 06 all the way up to this most recent 2024 season. And editor me will throw on the screen his table versus my table as far as those results, but for the most part, conceptually, they are very, very similar. I was honestly shocked at how close passer rating is to QBR, both when I replicated his work and his initial work. So what the heck? I came out and I argued that QBR was awesome, but now when it comes to the three main things for evaluating a quarterback stat, we see that passer rating is almost as good, if not better at times. So where the heck does that leave us? Well, I'm torn. QBR captures a lot of extra nuance that both you and I agree are important. Things like who the defense is, the down and distance of when a play happened, and all that other stuff. But at the same time, when it comes to these three measures of defining a quarterback stat, passer rating performs almost as well. If two models of representing reality are similarly strong, I've always been taught to choose the simpler model. It's easier to explain and it's less likely to run into weird edge cases that do weird stuff to it. And you know, passer rating only needs 5 numbers and you can do the math right here on this website. I mean, you could even do it on a napkin if you wanted to. Meanwhile, QBR is a complex formula that none of us know and that none of us will ever know because it remains behind the proprietary curtain of ESPN. So for now, I'm fine with people talking about passer rating, but am I wrong? Did I really overestimate QBR all this time, or am I missing something when it comes to why QBR is a great stat? If you have any thoughts, this is a genuine ask. I would love to hear your thoughts on this because this blew my mind and I wanted to share it with y'all. But that's all I got. Thanks for watching. Peace out.